Hello, this is Howard Shore, founder of Activate Group Inc., and I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about why your IT department must be the superhero in your company. This talk is about strategy, and this is a topic that has been a hallmark of my success and how I have helped influence over $1 billion worth of value. See, I believe that every company has the ability to achieve far more growth and profits than you ever imagined, and it's far easier than you think. One of the keys to doing so is to having the right strategic thinking process that challenges you to accelerate that growth, reduce stress, and free up leadership to find the time that's more important to them. So for those of you who don't know me, in addition to founding Activate Group, I am a two-time best-selling author and serial entrepreneur. I specialize in liberating C-suite teams from the barriers that are holding them back both professionally and personally. After owning and selling several of my own companies, working with numerous Fortune 500 companies, and training with performance enhancing organizations like 3HAG and Scaling Up, I have become a sought after mentor, executive coach, and keynote speaker. My clients have been in everything public, private, nonprofit, multinational companies. They range anywhere from $1 million to over $1 billion of revenue. But one thing I'm certain of, if you implement the concepts that I teach, your company will not only grow faster, it'll be more profitable, stable, and scalable. So more than ever, the companies need to shift the IT function's role and budgets from mostly operational effectiveness to strategic differentiation. Too often, companies are failing to take strategy serious enough. It's likely you have a strategic thinking framework, but it's too shallow. The consequences can be fatal. Even for large established companies that lead their industries, you're going to find that they're missing the boat on this. Leading companies must play to win and have a disposition to evolve. And if they don't, then competition is going to create new products and services, and new technologies are going to make your company obsolete, as is what happened to Kodak, Blockbuster, Toys R Us, Circuit City, and Nokia. Blockbuster used to be one of my favorite stories. Just a short 10 years ago, I used to talk about how they were a leader and they had developed a revolutionary approach to distributing video content. Fast forward a decade later, they don't exist. And Netflix has a market cap of over $220 billion. This was strategic. Also, Jim Collins had identified Circuit City in Good to Great. This was also a leader in their industry. You fast forward today, Circuit City doesn't exist, and Blockbuster is worth $27 billion in market capitalization. So most of you probably heard the term unicorn at this point as it comes to privately held startup companies that are valued over $1 billion of value. But do you realize that in 1996, there was only 39 companies that met this definition, and today there are over 500? And one thing I'm certain of is the companies that have met that definition have used technology to their advantage to help them reposition and position their company differently in the marketplace. And if you go to CB Insights and look at the future unicorns, the same thing's going to continue to happen. So half of the list of the future 50 that they've identified are either enterprise tools or fintech companies. Now, you may not have to develop your own technology per se, but technology definitely has to be a significant focus if you're going to be able to thrive and survive in the future. And I believe IT needs to play needs to play a more significant role on the strategy council, and rather just being a party to it, being a driver of it. So first thing I want to do is make sure that we have the same definition of strategy. Usually when I go in a room of people and I ask them to define strategy, I get lots of different answers, and most of them are not strategy. So I like Michael Porter's definition of strategy, and it's to deliberately choose a different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value. So on the surface, you're all going to say, yeah, we get that, we understand that. But what I find most of the time is companies, when they're thinking and saying strategy, they're really talking about operational effectiveness. Operational effectiveness is performing similar activities better than your rivals. Well, now operational effectiveness is necessary, it's not sufficient. It's just being about the best at existing activities. But the secret to competing in business is creating a strategy that makes your company unique. It positions you to avoid competing on the same dimensions as your rival. And when you get it right, you're basically delivering greater value to customers or creating comparable value at a lower cost, or you're doing both, right? So I like using the printing industry as an example. I grew up in it, and it's a great example of where operational effectiveness is failing right before everybody's eyes. And most CEOs I talk to feel like they're in a commodity business. It's all about price, and there's nothing they can do to separate themselves out in the market. And one of the problems they're dealing with is there's more supply than there is demand. And most of what they're doing is not bringing new consumers into their space. It's just playing in this bloody battle of just trying to take share away from other people. So R&R Donnelley and Quad Graphics are great examples of this. They are the two Goliaths in the printing industry. From 2016 to 2019, R&R Donnelley shrunk from 7 billion to 3.9 billion and lost money over those 4 years. Quad Graphics was no better. From 2019 to 2016 to 2019, they shrunk from 4.7 billion to 4.3 billion. And what was crazy is in 2019, a growth year for most businesses, they came back to their shareholders and said, listen, we did an awesome job. We beat expectations. We only lost $156 million. Now imagine this. These are the Goliaths, and see, the problem is in this industry, everyone's using the same technology. Everyone's putting in lean and all of these things to make them more effective, leveraging the same technologies to make labor more efficient. But the problem is everyone's going to head, and there is no differentiation. So now what's going on is the only two constituencies that are getting value from this hard work of the people in the industry are the vendors and the customers. The actual companies themselves are losing, but working extra hard today to get to where they're at. So Peloton, I think, is a great example of strategy, and one that uses technologies as an intersection in their strategies. So for those of you who don't know, basically Peloton is marrying physical and the digital world in the fitness space. In 2020, Peloton did almost $2 billion of revenue and had approximately 3.1 million users. I want to give you this context because this company was only founded in 2012. And compare them to LA Fitness. Many of us know that company. It's the largest in-person fitness organization. And in 2016, they only had about 128,000 members, and they were founded in 1984. So Peloton has a very distinct customer value, and it's clear to their users. So it's a highly interconnected fitness experience that starts in your home and can be private as you want, or as public as you want. And basically what they've done is they take durable hardware, integrated software, on-demand high quality content, and it's all has a curated pool of instructors. And through this interactive environment and supportive community, they're able to provide a value proposition that the in-person fitness organizations couldn't provide. And through the Peloton app, you can use and access digital training content and exercise, even if you don't own the equipment they sell. So as I talked about, you need a good, deep strategic system. This is ours. It's got 12 steps. It's powered by people like Jim Collins, Michael Porter, Kyan Krippendorf, and others. And what we've done is we've integrated all of that into an actionable and practical system. I don't have time to tell you about the whole thing. I'm just going to bring out some really important parts I want you to think about as you go back to your leadership teams that integrate some of the key components. The first one is a concept called the big, hairy, audacious goal. We've shortened it to audacious goal, but this really comes from Jim Collins's work. Was identified in both Built to Last and Good to Great, and is the centering point of the mountain to be conquered by your company. And I believe your company cannot achieve greatness without clarifying and using the audacious goal to drive you. So basically what Jim Collins mentioned in his book, Built to Last, is our job is to create a goal that is so challenging that we're not even sure how to get there today, but we know that mountain is climbable. And all we have to do is figure out peak by peak how to get there. And what it does is it challenges your organizations to shift how it does things, how it's going to market. It does reinforce your existing business fundamentals, but it will challenge every department to rethink about how it does, because you would never get to this 10 to 25 year goal. If you think you could do it in less than 10 years, it's not audacious enough, and it has to be something that is measurable. So some great examples, and I'll take the ones from the book, a couple here. You have Boeing. Back after World War II, they had to fire 75% of their workforce because their whole customer base primarily was the military. And after World War II, they didn't need to buy planes. So Boeing had to pull everything back. And this is when the team got together and the CEO made the bold decision to basically risk 75% of their net worth in order to go after the jet commercial aircraft market. So they had very limited exposure in the commercial space. And at the time, all you had was planes with the propellers. And when they went out and even suggested that they were going to bring jets, no one actually said that they were going to shift as customers. But the CEO and the leadership team knew this was the right place to take the company. And as you know, Boeing has been the one or two top leader in the world, ever since. They got the first, I think they were 707s or whatever out, and it just got them to take off. Other companies like Philip Morris, they were number 7 in the market when they decided they wanted to become the General Motors of the tobacco industry. Basically be the number 1 leader in the world. General Electric decided they needed to become 1 or 2 in every market they served, or they were going to exit. These goals really challenge their companies to greatness. And one question you need to go back to your leadership team is, do we have a profound enough audacious goal that is going to require us to shift? And one thing I am certain of, your company will not achieve audacious. It won't disrupt your industry unless you're using technology, which is where you all play in this formula. Another thing you need to do with your executive team is you need to have a vivid vision. So most leadership teams have been focused on these 5-year strategies, and I strongly believe in 3. Our world is changing too fast, and although your audacious goal may not change, how we're getting there needs to continue to evolve. And I do know that 3 years out is highly achievable, even when it's aggressive, if you've thought through your strategy correctly and you've set up the company for success. So when I talk about vivid vision, I'm not just talking about the numbers, the revenue, the gross margin, the net profit, the cash. I'm talking about, how are you going to get there? How are you going to make your company double or triple over the next 3 years? And by the way, if your 3-year goal is not at least doubling, then you're not really being strategic and you're not really stretching your company, because it's achievable in every single industry. We have proved it time again. And what you need to think about is you need to think about the units that are going to get you there. We call them the widgets. And these widgets actually help you define what are those key drivers that's going to make all your numbers happen. What are those key units that when we double and triple those units, our company is on a whole different playing field. And in order to do that, you need to understand what the 3 to 5 differentiating moves that you're going to make. Those are capabilities that don't exist or not near the level that they need to be 3 years from now, so that your company, rather than is just going like this, it goes like this and positions you in the marketplace. You need clarity around what you're going to be known for in the market that makes your company stand out from everybody else, and it's crucial to the end customer. And then you need to know the 3HAG sentence or phrase that defines the progress you've made towards your 3-year goals. So let's start with the 3HAG. So we want to always make sure your 3HAG is measurable, and we want to make sure as early as 3 years from now, you've made a remarkable difference on where you needed to get to. And so, good examples here. So Activate Group, a few years ago, we were proud of how many lives we had impacted. But I realized for a company that was around only 14 years, or had been around 14 years, we should have done a lot more, and we didn't challenge ourselves. So we took that number and we basically 10x'd it, that we were going to achieve that in 3 years, and then we were going to dramatically increase our impact to 500,000 lives. And I'm proud to say just 2 years later, we have already more than quadrupled the number of lives that we've impacted, and we are fast on our pace to being able to get to our 75,000 lives. One company that I'm really proud of was a global leader in payment processing, in the 80s. And when they set out as a startup, they decided that was what they wanted to achieve. And so their 3HAG, 3 years later, they wanted to already be the leader in North America, which they became, and eventually became the global leader until they got bought out. And a couple more examples here are companies that are more mid-market companies, and they still had very ambitious goals for what they had accomplished after 20 years in their market and where they wanted to be, just a few short years later, or 10 years later. So in order to do all of this, and this is where IT comes in, if every one of your differentiators doesn't have some component of how IT is going to have you compete differently from everybody else, you're in trouble. So that company that became a global payment processing company, they were an IT company, but every facet of how they were going to compete on different dimensions in the marketplace required an IT element to it, and required them to play very differently. And actually, in their case, they developed a lot of their own software capabilities because it didn't exist in the market. Once you're clear on that, we need to know, when you're doing all of this, what are you going to get known for in a phrase, 1 or 2 sentences? What describes what you are known for that is highly valuable and is one of the most important drivers to your customers buying your products and services? And some examples I would give you is, think about Amazon. Amazon just changed retail. Even though they're a technology company, not a retail company, they have the widest selection of products below MSRP, and they deliver it to you within 48 hours. You just do a few clicks, have to buy something. I don't know if you're like me. I'm an Amazon junkie. I have a package coming every other day to my house. And then when you look at Apple, they really stand out for innovation. People buy their stuff because they think they're cool. All right. They basically have a community of, raving fans that they want whatever the latest things out as soon as possible. You go to Volvo, and Volvo in their industry was about safety, and BMW is about performance. And in even the car industry, I mean, technology has been crucial to moving companies and help them evolve to deliver a different product or service than we've been used to, even driving cars. So what I want to challenge you in your company is, what are you doing with technology that is actually going to position you to have a severe advantage over the competition and will allow you to play on a different dimension of value and or be able to deliver at a lower cost in ways that your competition can't replicate. So everything I talk about is proven. It's not theory, it's proven in practice over and over again. A good example is my client Titan Restoration out in Phoenix, Arizona. You go to their company when you have a fire or flood, and when they came to me, the CEO was super proud of where he had gotten to after 20 years, but he knew they were capable of so much more. And 3 years later, I'm proud to say, by implementing our strategic thinking process, they not only tripled in size, they grew at 6 times the industry average. They expanded their profit margin to 5 times the net profit margin of the industry, and we tripled employee engagement. And I got to tell you, a big piece of this did involve technology. Without it, they never would have been able to get the margins, and they never would have been able to deliver or see how they needed to deliver differently and better than their competition. So what I want you to do right after you get done with this is, I want you to choose the right strategic system, one that is deep enough to allow you to really position your company differently. At a minimum, I want to make sure you and your leadership team have a clear, big, hairy, audacious goal in mind. You need to have a clear 3 HAG, but not just the numbers, the differentiators, the positioning in the market that is going to get you there. And most importantly, I want to challenge you to challenge the CEO to put IT in the front of the bus, regardless of the industry. How can you use IT to reposition yourself on a different playing field than everybody else who's competing in your market? And for those of you who have not gotten it already, I launched my new book in 2020, and I'm really excited to say it has just flown off the shelves. It's been a Wall Street Journal bestseller, a USA Today bestseller, Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And in that book is actionable and practical ideas that can make your company grow faster and more profitably. And the crazy part is, you're probably going to be working half you do today, or with half the effort, by implementing these ideas. So what I want to offer this audience is, if you haven't gotten a book, I'm not in the business of making monies in books. I'm in the business of changing lives. So I want to give you a free copy, electronic copy of the Leader Launchpad. If you just send an email to shoreh@activategroupinc.com, that's me personally. You're not going to get into some sort of crazy list, and I will send you a copy of my book free, hoping that you're going to implement what you learn. If you heard something, it stuck with you, and you realize that your strategic thinking process has not helped you create a unique and valuable position that separates you from your market, please give me a call. This again is my personal information, my phone number. You call me, we can sit down and chat and see if we can help your company change its growth and success rate to a whole nother level. Thank you for listening to me today.